This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, Winnipeg and Manitoba? It is time for another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. The Jets have just wrapped up practice down at Canada Life Center earlier and are getting on the bird to Chicago to play the Blackhawks and Connor Bedard tomorrow night. Friday night game, 7:30, before returning home for the Coyotes on Sunday and the St. Louis Blues on Tuesday night. So some Central Division matchups over the next few days. We'll get the latest on the Jets and a very important Jet not at practice today. We'll discuss that in a few minutes. Scott Billeck's going to jump on the program, as will Mike McIntyre. We'll get the State of the Union from Scott and Mike on what's going on with the hockey club, their thoughts on the upcoming trade deadline as well. And then a little later on, we should, as I said, we're just getting audio right now. So we'll hear from Adam Lowry and hopefully head coach Rick Bowness as well. And then later on, towards the end of the program, a really great conversation for our Sport Manitoba Takes a Community to Play series with former Manitoba Marathon champion Chris Glowach. I think you'll really enjoy that. So should be a fun couple hours. Wild night, or what? It wasn't really a wild night in the league last night, but one of the games of the year took place. We'll get to that as well. But just before we bring in Michael Remis, let me give a big shout out to everyone that's joining us live on YouTube right now. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, as well as a shout out to everyone making the WST podcast part of your day. If you are a podcast listener, if you get an opportunity at some point, maybe during your work day or even afterwards, jump on the YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and we always appreciate your comments as well after the fact if you're not able to join with our crew that's always in the chat room while we're doing the shows live on YouTube each and every day. Of course, a big thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen every day. Our gang at Coolbet Canada just finished a fun lock shop with Dustin Nielsen over at the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. Congrats to the EST guys for hitting 7,000 subs. And speaking of that, we are so close to 11,000 subs here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and let us get to our next milestone. Our friends at Princess Auto, great sponsors of ours, and of course the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Sounds like Dalton Schoen's going to be popping by WST tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Of course, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Sport Manitoba with Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, Little Brown Jug, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, the Winnipeg Jets, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, and the Great Taste of Canadian Club. What's going on, Michael Remis? How are you?
I'm feeling good. It was a fun night in the NHL last night. A lot of the games taking place in the Pacific time zone or Mountain.
Yeah, it was your prime time. Put the kids to bed.
Yes.
Put the wife to bed and fire up. Did you go multiple TVs? Were you watching Austin Matthews score 50 and 51 while watching the game of the year between the Bruins and the Oilers?
I was actually. I had that game. I also had my eye on the Columbus Anaheim game, but I was intrigued. I'm on Matthews Mania.
You're sick.
Columbus scored 7. I didn't see that one coming. They got some good players, Columbus. It's amazing how bad they've been. But yeah, we had the early games, Sabres, Canadians, Flyers, Blackhawks. Not great games, but I'm on the Matthews train. He's really good. He's scoring every game. He's scored 51 goals this season, Huss. And this is a historic pace. Fastest American ever to 50 goals, passing Kevin Stevens. I think 92, 93 they showed on the broadcast. So it's pretty awesome to see in Arizona. Good for him. And then I flipped over to Bruins Oilers. some back and forth action. That was an awesome game.
Was absolutely bananas. Like, and obviously, I mean, I get a lot of Oilers talk, and I'm involved in a lot from doing the Lock Shop with Dusty every day, and certainly paying attention to the great job the fellas are doing with their show at Edmonton Sports Talk. And the Oilers in the last few games have been getting absolutely caved in the second period. And it happened again last night. I mean, you turn away for a minute or flick over to the curling, which I did, and you turn back and it's 4-1. It's like, oh, well, Boston doing it again on the road. Edmonton, a bit of a wake-up call. Get back to an incredible matchup between Caitlin Laws and Carrie Anerson. And then it was 5-4 for the Oilers. Boston ties it up, and Charlie McAvoy wins it in overtime, an absolutely spectacular OT winner. But that like, just as far as for pure entertainment, like, I didn't have a bet on the game. I was hoping for a McDavid goal. But it was spectacular. I mean, it was back and forth. It was two of the best teams in the National Hockey League. And that is the sort of game. And I know Edmonton's in a different time zone. I know the game started late. And if you were on the East Coast, the game didn't even start till 10. So a lot of people missed it. But that was unfortunate because, honestly, you'll go through 82 games for all of the teams in the league this year. I don't think you'll find many that were in the league of that one for entertainment value.
Oh, yeah. I mean, back and forth, 11 total goals, went to overtime. You had lead changes, top players in the NHL making plays. So it was a fantastic game. Maybe both teams would say they'd want to maybe be a bit better defensively. Maybe the goalies would say they'd like some of them back, but Oilers 42 shots, Bruins 36. That was an awesome one. I was staying up late. I was editing some stuff here, video of you and Murat talking about the lines on our channel. That's getting a lot of comments, but also had this game on. So, the Oilers looked like they blew it, then they tied it up. And then in overtime, and couldn't help but notice Evander Kane looking silly on that winner by Charlie McAvoy. I don't know what he's doing on defense, but I see a lot of guys in the NHL do this. You saw it actually, there was a highlight reel goal in the Ducks game. If you're a defenseman, like, I don't know anything about playing NHL defense, but stay on your skates. Do not lie down to block a shot. Guys are going to pass it around you. They're going to dangle it around you. And what? Even if you block the pass, it's going to bounce off you and go right back on their stick because you're on the ground. You can't do anything. So I don't know what Kane was doing on the play, but he got postered. That was the hockey equivalent of getting postered on that Charlie McAvoy winner.
Yeah, Evander, I'm not sure if he needs to. He was gassed at the end of that one. He's been spending a lot of time selling Instagram follows for $500 and personal videos for $1,200. Maybe time to just focus on the task at hand. That was a great game. And as far as Matthews goes, like, listen, we're all from Winnipeg. We're Jets people. For a long, long time, we almost, it was like if you were a Jets fan, you had to be, I don't want to say a Matthews hater, but somewhat anti-Matthews because it was Line A, it was Matthews. Line A was our guy. Even if you hate the Leafs, which I know many of you do, most of you probably do, you got to tip your cap to what Matthews is doing this season. He's on well in excess of a 70-goal pace. And he has turned into, truly one of the great goal scorers of this generation, of the last couple decades, to be honest with you. I mean, with some great company. And the way that he is scoring, I mean, he's taken his game to a whole nother level this year. And like, when you look at the MVP odds and the MVP conversation, it's been Kucherov. It's McDavid. It is Nathan McKinnon, who I think has been the favorite for the most part of the year. I would have to think that if Matthews gets over 70 goals, that there's going to be a lot of people that say, he might not have the assists, but every other metric tells you that Austin Matthews is having a historic season right now. And goals are what pays the bills in the National Hockey League right now. So, I think even some people that were pretty negative on Austin for whatever reason for a long time have sort of come around, and you just have to appreciate the greatness that he's putting on right now even if he plays for the hated Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I want to hate Austin Matthews. He plays for Toronto. They get all the airtime on the big networks. We did Line versus Matthews. We talked about that, and we're trying to talk ourselves into Line being a better player and the Jets being better than the Leafs. Remember that game when they faced off at Canada Life Center and Line scored the winner? But I mean, in the last case, the fastest to 50 goals in the last 30 years. Austin Matthews, he just got 50 goals in 54 games. That's the third fastest in the last 30 years. Only faster, Mario Lemieux, 50 goals in 50 games in 95-96. And Cam Neely, 44 games to 50 goals in 93-94. And then Yager, 95-96, also did it, but he did it 59 games. So, I mean, you're up there with legends. You look at, for Hart Trophy, if you want to look at primary points, he's second in the league in primary points. That's just goals and first assist behind Kucherov. So I think there's certainly an argument that goal scoring, he's way better than anyone else in the league right now at doing it. And we're watching, historically. We talked about what was the line on him scoring yesterday? Like minus, was something stupid.
Yeah, to score yesterday, I think it was like minus 125 or something like that. I bet him to score 2. And he got the 2 last night and bailed out the evening.
And the 2 he scored, I mean, he scored 1 bounced off his chest, 1 from a crazy angle, and he's got 51 goals on the year. The next closest is Sam Reinhart at 39 goals. And then Kucherov.
Which is also amazing. We were talking about that in the lock shop today. Like, if you just said to an average fan, Matthews is running away with the goal scoring. He's got 51. Who's second? I don't think there's many fans that would say, oh, Sam Reinhart.
No.
And he's a UFA at the end of the year. He's going to probably hit 50. A huge part of, I believe they're still the number 1 team in the East right now. And he'll certainly have his opportunity to play in the playoffs, and did last year as well with that incredible run. They're 1 point back of Boston, 1 point back of Boston with the game in hand. They're playing Carolina tonight, which is actually going to be a really good one. So that challenge for Florida to keep Reinhart in the mix is going to be something, because they've got Kachuk at 9.5. Barkov at 10, Bob at 10, Ekblad at 7.5. Guys like Montour coming up and needing raises. Bill Zito's definitely got some work, but man, Reinhart has had a monster season right now. But when you're talking goals right now, it's been Austin Matthews, and he has been absolutely phenomenal. We will get to a busy night in the National Hockey League a little bit later on. When we get into the cool bet lines a little later. But let's kind of focus in on the Winnipeg Jets, Reem. And the team was out there today at practice without Nikolai Ehlers. And we'll find out a little bit more from Billeck as well as Mike McIntyre, and hear from Rick Bowness. But Kenny Wiebe tweeted, he of the Winnipeg Free Press, that Bowness said Ehlers is, quote, battling something, but he's expected to play tomorrow versus the Blackhawks. Nagging injury is how Bowness describes it. And you know what? I'd say the story checks out a little bit, because I don't think Ehlers has been at his normal elite level over the last little while. And certainly that's been a conversation. What's up with the second line? Ehlers and Perfetti have not been producing. But again, a bigger conversation. And again, if you missed it yesterday with Murat, and he had a great piece in The Athletic on somewhat of a double standard amongst Jets forwards. At least that was how he interpreted it. And it got some great feedback, and it's continuing to get some great feedback now that it's on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I posted that separately on our channel. We've had some great, before we get into today, just finishing up yesterday, so we did get some great feedback as well on the question of the day. If you were disappointed that, there wasn't more action taken against Ryan Hartman in that game against Minnesota. I said, look, the Jets that's not their game. They're focused on doing their job, and that's winning and getting 2 points. Eric disagreed in the comments, heard him on the scoreboard where it counts. And King Kenny says 2 points are what matters most. And Tico Napoli was the only one to chime in all caps, saying extremely disappointed. Some games, what was his line? Extremely disappointed. Some things are more important than the 2 points. And I'm shortening his comment, but I did appreciate all the comments on that one, Huss. And as far as today and Nikolai Ehlers, I mean, it's funny, you look at his points distribution per month. October, he was coming back from an injury, 4 points in 9 games. And he started heating up. November, 7 points in 13 games. Red hot December, 15 points in 13. Now it's kind of like a curve where he's slowing down here. January, 9 points in 12. And February is kind of back to where he was in October, 2 points in 7 games. And for Rick Bowness to say he's dealing with something, I think that kind of checks out just based on how his production has looked. And he's really fallen off here in the last stretch. So you hope he can get right. But doesn't sound like it's something that's going to cause him to miss games, but maybe he's not at 100%.
Yeah, and right now, listen, if he was dealing with something that needed time, he wouldn't be in the lineup. And apparently, according to Bones, and again, we'll talk about this more as the show continues and hear from Bones. If they needed him some time out to heal, and I see some people saying that in the chat, I mean, he would do it. And it's not like he's not still skating fast or anything. It just hasn't been there hasn't been that connection on that line with the line mates. And, there's been a few careless plays. There's been some strange decisions. There's been some giveaways that maybe weren't there when Ehlers was at the height of his game. For the Winnipeg Jets to win and contend and be the Stanley Cup contender that many believe that they are, they need to have Ehlers playing his best, productive. And I know there's a lot of angles as to where the Jets will get the most out of him, and we certainly touched on that with Murat yesterday. But that is something, and again, we'll be talking quite a bit about Ehlers, Perfetti, the Jets' top 6, and how this team looks going into these games against Chicago and in Arizona. Just back to those comments for 1 minute. And I had a couple conversations off air. I got a few texts from people after the show yesterday. And it's not like people are losing their minds. But I will say this, that the Jets lost that game to Minnesota, but really exercised themselves as a team in coming together against a team that had in the past at times seemingly sort of pushed them around. I wouldn't have had an issue with it. And listen, I do agree. The thing that's most devastating in Minnesota is losing that game. So they got one over on them in that way. I will admit, I expected there to be at least something to Ryan Hartman, whether someone just went and challenged him to a fight, give him the business after a whistle or two. But that just seemed to not be there. And I know there's some people, and Tijuana Paulie is a perfect example, that thinks that doesn't send a great message to maybe the rest of the league when, what happens come playoff time. We've seen what the Vegas Golden Knights have done to this team. We saw what the Vegas Golden Knights did and tried to do to the Jets at the beginning of this season. So I certainly would not have thought it would have been a bad message to send that they weren't going to take that garbage. And who knows, maybe something will happen later on in the year. The game was weird in that the Jets were up a couple goals, and I think to their credit, they didn't do anything stupid that put Minnesota on the power play and allowed them to get back in, because that power play was hot and that team was scoring goals at a crazy clip. And then the minute you thought that might happen in the third period, after the Jets got those 2 quick goals, very quickly Minnesota scored 2 and the game was right back tight. So maybe it was this situation. But it was interesting to hear from a bunch of different people with very different opinions on what did and what didn't happen on the 20th when the Minnesota Wild finally came back and these teams saw each other again.
Yeah, we were looking forward to this game, thought something would happen. And, I mean, there's been a lot of BS from Minnesota over the years. Cole Perfetti getting slashed in the face. Nikolai Ehlers taking a cheap hit from Hartman. Marcus Foligno got suspended for kneeing Adam Lowry, who was down after a fight. Like, really dumb stuff. And you thought, okay, this is a time for the Jets to show them, hey, you can't push us around. And what happened was they got out to a lead, and they're trying to protect the lead, and and they're trying to prevent the comeback. They're just too focused on playing, the actual game and to get involved with that kind of BS. And here's, I'll just expand on Tico Napoli's comment in our comment section on yesterday's show. Extremely disappointed. Couple last years of wild bullying. Last night, especially with the Wild missing their scrappers, he's referring to Marcus Foligno and Patrick Malone, was the night. Now, he takes it a bit extreme. He says, this was the night to have dressed Jeffrey VL of Moose, and yes, targeted Hartman in a clean way. No stick infractions, but yes, a jump in and a beat down. Tico Napoli a little off the rails. He said, but it was the night to send a message to the Wild and the league that the Jets will not be bullied. Some things are more important than the 2 points. I think they sent a message that, hey, they're got more stuff, that they care about, but it just was such BS to slash a guy in the face. Such BS for that cheap shot that knocked out Ehlers for the playoffs. And you would have liked to see something, but I don't know. Do you want to get into this eye for an eye game? That's not the Jets game. Their Jets game this year is winning, and they did that. And their game this year is being going for a division title. What I've liked
being
is
3-0 against the Wild,
and being 3-0, and being 3-0 against the Wild. So I don't know. They're not going to get to that level, and I kind of respect that, but also you do want to see like Hartman get like face washed or something. Like make his life miserable. You can do stuff within the rules that's not involved to stick to the face.
No, you're right. And I maintain, like, I'm not suggesting that the Jets should resort to the cheap bullshit that the Minnesota Wild did against the Winnipeg Jets in that game. Like, I'm not saying that, one of the fourth liners should have gone and, high stick Marco Rossi in the grill. But I mean, to be frank, I was expecting something to happen to Hartman or some sort of response to Hartman in the first game on the 30th in Winnipeg because of the cheap shot he had on Ehlers last year that cost him the rest of the regular season and all but one playoff game. So, like, as I said, I'm not talking about anybody else, but that is a guy that if you are, I think, have any connection to the Winnipeg Jets, whether you were a fan, a player, working in the office, you feel that, you as a team owed that guy something and some sort of a statement. And I will definitely stand by what I said yesterday. If the roles were reversed and it had been the Jets, one of their players, Adam Lowry or whoever, had, high stick Rossi off a face-off and had basically said that he did it on purpose and it was for all that other stuff, there is zero chance that would not have been addressed by a team like Minnesota. That is just the way that they play. So, again, we're not saying that the Jets need to completely change their way, but I think that they have become, and Rick Bowness has said it all along. I mean, think back. You come at one of us, you come at all of us. So it was a little surprising that there wasn't a little bit more. I know there's one more game against that team later on this season, and I know the Jets are worried about much more important things like first place in the Central Division, while the Wild are hoping to have a sniff of getting into a wild card spot. But I wasn't surprised, as I said, with some of the feedback that we got from people, and certainly just talking about it right now is giving us plenty more to talk about and get to in the chat. You know what? This is I was going to kind of get into some of these trade targets for the Why Not question of the day, but let me put it out to you right now. And I guess we sort of did this yesterday, but maybe in a different way. Why Not question of the day for not Autocorp but Waverly and McGillivray. Were you disappointed that there was not, in particular to Ryan Hartman, somebody or a number of guys stepping up and making it very clear that the garbage that was perpetrated on Cole Perfetti, who had nothing to do with any of that in that game on New Year's Eve, that it wasn't addressed, shall we say, on Tuesday night over at the Canada Life Center. Remo, Billeck's going to join us in a few minutes, and we will get to some of that. And I know we'll kind of revisit a few of these topics. Ehlers' status. By the way, Alex Iafallo moving into the power play spot today in practice. But again, Bones saying it is likely, they are hopeful that Ehlers will be playing tomorrow. They expect him to play gave him a day off right now. One other thing that is happening is that we're getting closer and closer to the March 8th deadline, but I think that Lindholm trade and the Monahan trade to the Jets, which has looked great over the past week, has taken a little bit of a steam out of a lot of trade talk and a lot of trade conversation around the league. That being said, Frank's back with another trade bait board, and what do we know? Kelly McCrimmon said yesterday Mark Stone could be out, quote, for a while. And now there's talk of, guess who, the Vegas Golden Knights weaponizing LTIR space. And now maybe they're a player at the deadline. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, it's strange. We saw Jack Eichel go on LTIR earlier this week. And here come everyone, Vegas, they're at it again. And now Mark Stone, he's out. So we'll see what happens there. Sinbin Vegas reporting March or so battling injuries could keep him out tonight. So we'll see what happens with Vegas. They're pretty sneaky. And I would dismiss it before, saying, you know what, it was kind of a coincidence with the Patrick Kane thing and Kucherov being injured and coming back. But if teams are using this as a loophole to add up at the deadline, you gotta do something here. This is a trend. This becomes a trend, and you don't want to see that. As far as the trade deadline, March 8th, I think the Jets and Vancouver did it right, getting it on early and making their moves. You're seeing Monahan already making an impact. It was so clear that the Jets needed another center with Scheifele out, and Monahan was one of the best ones available, and he also had a pretty reasonable salary. And you're just looking at the trade targets, Frank's list, Noah Hannafin and Chris Tanev are 1-2, and Calgary's kind of been hanging around. I think they're waiting to see, are we in? Are we out? Can our team finally get it together and put on a win streak? And they can't. They're too inconsistent. So I expect them to do some moves. And Jake Gensel comes in at number 3, Huss, and Pittsburgh's in a tough spot where they have all these old players, and you're to say, okay, who is your core 4 guys? For them, sign long-term Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, and those guys are getting old. And Jake Gensel, he's a pretty good player. He's got 52 points in 50 games, but he's 29 years old, and he's might get a raise here at $6 million. So, and they're not in the playoffs. They need to figure out how they're going to try to get back there and might become a cap casualty. So what happens with Jake Gensel? Is he the winger, us, that ends up in Vegas? Could you imagine that? But those are the top 3 names right now on the trade board. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, speaking of Vegas, I mean, Riley Smith, who was a huge part of that organization up until winning the cup last year, was a cap casualty so they could keep Barbashev. He got traded for a pick to Pittsburgh. They took on the entire salary. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Riley Smith ended up going back to Vegas and Pittsburgh eating part of the salary so that he was able to get onto the Vegas Golden Knights lineup. That is a player that they know as well. I mean, as far as that list, Calgary is the Winnipeg of last year, where PLD was on the list. Well, basically, there were all sorts of Winnipeg Jets on the list, and a bunch of them right at the top. But as you mentioned, Noah Hannafin, Chris Tanev, both pending UFAs, 1-2 on the list. Gensel, as you mentioned, is number 3. You've got Adam Henrique, Jake Allen, Sean Walker from the defense core, the blue line, or on the right side. He's got a lot of talk. The Riley Smith, who I just mentioned, is at 8. And then there's Jacob Markstrom as well at number 10. And much like last year, where all those guys were on the list and not a lot of ended up happening, the Jets ended up being buyers and getting Vlad Domestikov and getting Nino Niederreiter and making the playoffs. The Calgary Flames, as you mentioned, are just sort of right now in a limbo. They had a nice win against Winnipeg. That was after 2 really ugly losses. I think the next week or 2 is going to let it play out. But with where Calgary is and having already traded Elias Lindholm, I don't really think that even a 6 or 7 game winning streak that put them into a wild card spot would prevent Craig Conroy from pulling the trigger on a deal that he thinks significantly improves his team in the long run, because it ain't about this year for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, and it's crazy how it's gone here. You look at Calgary the last couple of years. You thought Brad Treliving kind of salvaged it when Tkachuk and Gaudreau walked out the door with the Huberdeau trade, but that trade's looked like and the signing has looked like a disaster. The Nazem Kadri, signing, he seems to be a bit overpaid. So those guys, they thought they were in a solid team in Calgary, and they're I don't think they're going for a full rebuild, but they have a good opportunity here to try to get some picks back, maybe flip those picks for players. They now got 2 first-round picks this year. Can they get another one for Hanifin? What are they going to get for Chris Tanev as well? So Calgary is certainly an intriguing team going forward. And I did like the Lindholm trade, because they got Kuzmenko, who's an NHL player, and they got him for next year as well. So we'll see what they try to do, going forward. But that's a team to watch, and I agree. They're not going to make the playoffs, and time to trade those guys and get what you can, and try to get at it again next year.
You know what? Just when Billeck's going to jump on with us, one other thing, we got some really nice feedback during the show yesterday, as well as after the show, was on our conversation with Norva Riddell from True North on the Jets ticket campaign that's just launched in the last couple days. If you missed it, pop back and check it out. I mean, it's very clear that, the people involved behind the scenes in the organization have been spending countless hours connecting with season ticket holders, connecting with former season ticket holders, package holders, because I think everyone realizes what needs to happen, and that is getting this team back to a healthy season ticket base of 13,000, which is where it was established. If you missed it, though, right now, it's a great opportunity for many of you I know that have been thinking about getting back in with the club, especially after this great season that the team has had. The We're All In campaign is underway. Go to winnipegjets.com and find out more. But with playoffs expected here in Winnipeg, and certainly it would take a miracle not for that to happen at this point, miracle in the wrong way, you have the opportunity to put a deposit down for a package for next season and get priority access to Stanley Cup playoff ticket packages and pre-sales, which is something that normally a huge benefit for season ticket holders and package holders as well. So go to winnipegjets.com/deposit. You can click in, you'll see all the details on tickets for next season, the different packages. And as I mentioned yesterday, whether it's through the Discord, whether it's through Twitter or email, whether it's through the chat, would love to see some WSTers maybe come together as share partners in season tickets. I always say season tickets is the best way. If you have the opportunity to get in on a season ticket, you always get the best seats, you get the max benefits, you get the 25% discount on beers and whatnot at games. And it's always fun getting together with the gang and picking your seats at the start of the year. And obviously you have some people that if something comes up, you can trade a game with every now and then. So let us know, or let other people in the chat know, and maybe we can help get a few of our listeners together and see them a little more often down at Canada Life Center and help that team get back to where they need to be at 13,000 season tickets or equivalent. So that is there right now, winnipegjets.com/tickets. /deposits, I should say. And thanks again to Norva for jumping on tomorrow. We are fired up. I guess it's a week today. We're going to be down with the Canadian Club crew, the Winnipeg Whiskey Festival, and the WSTers at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame for our special whiskey tasting event, and watching the Jets and the Dallas Stars. Cannot wait for that. Of course, Canadian Club and Beam Suntory, big sponsors of the Winnipeg Whiskey Festival and our partners in this event. We're going to be speaking with a couple of the ambassadors of Canadian Club, telling us about how it's all made, and trying some great whiskeys while hopefully watching the Jets win a big divisional game. In the meantime, we'll look forward to seeing you all next Thursday that we're able to get tickets. And otherwise, pick up Canadian Club next time you're at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And remember, always drink responsibly. Got to shout out our pals over at Manitoba Battery right now, getting ready to open up their second location on Dover Court in the south side of the city. You know, Manitoba Battery is the go-to place for batteries of all makes, models, and sizes. The one consistent thing is that it's the best price in town, beating the pants off the big box stores for all of your battery needs. And even better yet, for any purchase over $60, Donnie and the staff will deliver it to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter. It's that easy. So while they open up, and we'll let you know about grand opening specials at the Dover Court location for all your battery needs, manitobabattery.com, 204-783-8787. And of course, you can visit them at their current original location at 1026 Logan Avenue. And just about time for me, I think, to head back to our friends at Modern Man for a little touch-up on the dome. Guys, if you need a great new look, Modern Man is there for you with 8 locations in the city of Winnipeg, including their 2 newest locations, standalone locations on Pembina Highway and on Plessis Road. Modern Man has you covered, fellas, with great haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Amazing collection of products as well to keep you looking good. Make an appointment and book your look via modernmanbarber.com and give them a follow on Instagram at Modern Man Barber Shops. All right, Mike McIntyre coming up a little later on. Let's get Scott Billeck in here and keep the Jets conversation going on right now. Billeck, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you guys doing?
I'm
down at the rink this morning, so yeah.
I'm doing well. You know, it's funny. There were prop bets on when I would bring a Chiefs reference in, and I am already seeing that I'm already seeing that we were talking about Austin Matthews earlier on and comparing that to Patrick Mahomes. I'll just tell you all in the chat, there's nobody in the NHL that can be compared to Patrick Mahomes.
Especially on the Leafs.
For obvious reasons. Well, yes, exactly. When you're talking about rings and whatnot, it certainly isn't there. But bringing it back to the Jets, and again, hopefully we'll have Bones in between Scott and Mike, just in 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so here on the program. But before we kind of dive into where the team is at, heading on this quick 1-game road trip before coming back, Scott, fill us in on this morning and what we heard, or where was Nikolai Ehlers? Yeah. What did they have to say about that? And a little bit of a practice update, if you would.
Yeah, so Nikolai Ehlers, undisclosed nagging injury that he's had for a while now that I guess he's been nursing. So they'll see what happens tomorrow in Chicago when they get there. But yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to make sure they stay ahead of it. Same sort of thing that we saw in training camp with his neck injury and whatever else that was going on there with him there. So yeah, I think they're just trying to make sure it doesn't turn into something worse. Obviously, we saw last season what happened to Ehlers and how many games he missed. I believe it was 38 in total. By the time when it came to his groin injury and the hernia and all that. So yeah, nothing. It doesn't sound anything, to borrow a phrase from Paul Maurice, sinister. Doesn't sound like there's anything sinister there, but just keeping them off the ice for the obvious, not trying to aggravate it further.
Speaking of sinister, was there any mention of malaise? Because there has been a little bit of malaise, I would say, lately.
Yeah, I mean, no. I just think, I think the first thing people thought was, well, I don't know what people thought. I mean, I got a message, is he getting traded? I'm like, no. I mean, I don't think it's that. But it's been a tough go, I think, for 2/3 of that second line. Obviously, you look at Sean Monahan, and to be fair, the line's been all right. It hasn't been horrible, but they aren't scoring. And a lot of the production that we're seeing, even 5-on-5 production with this team in general, they're scoring more, but a lot of it's because they've scored 6 goals on their last 11 power plays. Us, right? And I do think you owe me a bit of a shout out or an apology or something for. He's telling me that I wasn't going to score. Remember predicting
that. Yeah. Well, and listen, they haven't just scored, to your credit. They have absolutely exploded. And and again, we can kind of get into more of the Monahan effect and what that has had on the power play as of late, because he is a huge, huge part of it. But I am sort of with you. Sooner or later, it was going to come around. The players that they're rolling out there with the man advantage are just too good to be as ineffective as they were for so long. And sometimes it just takes one to go in.
That's all it took.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize to whoever dropped this stat, but I believe the 6 goals and 11 power plays is the best 3-game stretch this team has had maybe since the team came here from Atlanta, if not like in the last 9 seasons.
I believe so, yes. Yeah, I think it goes back to, I'd have to look back, but you're right. We were talking about this the other day in the press box, just the way that and I don't think they've scored 2, and it's like, because they had 2 in each game, right? And so, yeah, there's something weird with that. But it's been a great stretch, and it started with the puck getting down low to Gabe Vilardi and just kind of little backhand flick into the net, right? And it was just, he said it himself. He's like, we hadn't been scoring. We're just trying to get something done. But then you see it. You saw that. And then all of a sudden you get the Monahan tic-tac-toe. And then from there, it goes off, right? And then Monahan's in it. I wrote about this a little bit yesterday, but I think that the Monahan effect is huge. Having him in that bumper position has been really big for this Jets team, because it's now it just forces the offense to stay honest, right? And if they cheat, you start creating problems for yourself, because then if you cheat, you open up Vilardi down low. And if you cheat towards Monahan, you open up Vilardi down low. If you cheat towards Vilardi, you open up Monahan, and then you also then open up Kyle Connor on the other side. You can bring it back to the top with Morrissey. I think there's a lot that Monahan is allowed to do, and he's kind of shifty in there. He moves up and down. He tries to find the ice, and you can see by watching it how quickly that Scheifele can get him the puck and get that shot off. And just going back to the thing, it's the 2-goal stretch, 3 games in a row, first time since February 2012. Shout out to Ken Weeb, who sent me a text during this, so we know Kenny's watching.
Thank you, Weaver. He's on it.
Yeah, so he's got it. But yeah, so I mean, it's been good. It's worked well, and you're right. I mean, I think it goes back to what we all sort of knew. It was that there's so much talent that you can't keep it at bay for that long, right? I mean, you can only keep a lion caged for so long, and eventually it was going to come out, and it came out. So they got the scoring going. I think it's helped. I think it's bled a little bit into their 5-on-5. I think we saw that against Vancouver a little bit. I mean, Calgary, I think Adam Lowry called today a bit of a write-off or a forget-about game. But then come back against the Minnesota Wild, and it helped them there too. So I think they're not bleeding points from it anymore, Huss. I mean, if we go back a month, we were talking about how much, they're losing points and it's costing them games. I would argue that it helped win them that Vancouver game. I think you can make the same argument about the Minnesota game as well, because it helped them keep it going, right? You get the 5-on-5 goals. You start the game off with the power play goal. Like it starts going, and then snowballs from there. So,
okay, can we put that same theory that it's bound to turn around with the talent on the ice?
Yeah.
To the Ehlers Monahan Perfetti line that we did to the power play through those struggles, because I think you can make some comparisons between the two. That it doesn't make sense. And I know there's been a lot of talk about who should be on what line. I mean, as I pointed out yesterday on the program, I'm here for all those conversations, but at a certain point, you have to give the coach a reason to be moving you up in the lineup as opposed to down in the lineup. And for all the permutations and the history and what happened 2 or 3 months ago, I think we can honestly say that, in particular through the recent struggles of Perfetti and Nikolai Ehlers, there hasn't been a lot of evidence that that those guys were needing more of an opportunity up on that top line just based on recent play.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, Huss, like, we know a couple things about this team. We know that Mark and Connor have a long history of playing together. That plays a big role in this, right? I think there's a lot of familiarity there, and we're also waiting to sort of see, like, Rick Bowness has talked a lot about waiting to have Kyle Connor, Gabe Vilardi, and Scheifele together on the power play. Well, that also extends to the top line, right? Because it's the same amount of time that they've missed on both, right? And so I think they're trying to figure that out too. Has it been great analytically? No. But at the same time, it's hard to make an argument that you would put Kyle Connor, a prolific goal scorer, one of the guys, you look at the stats, Huss, and he's right up there with all the guys from when he came in the league 2017-18. He's up there with the Pasternaks and the Austin Matthews and the McDavid in terms of just pure goal scoring. He's an elite scoring talent that belongs on the top line. there's a little bit more leash, I think, there for him as well, right? I mean, I asked Rick Bowness about that a little bit today, just kind of sidebar here, but like, is there more leash for a Kyle Connor turnover than there would be for a Nikolai Ehlers turnover? He said no, but he also said that Ehlers is a part of the contingent there that has a little bit more leash. Not entirely sure that that's always reflected in the ice time. I think where the argument comes for having Ehlers on the top line, and we've talked about this before, is just we looked at that sample size that we had back in December when Kyle Connor went down and Ehlers, and they went on a really incredible run, right? And then you look at Ehlers this year with Mark Scheifele, and he's had better time with Mark than anybody else. But, I mean, at the same time, Nikolai Ehlers also needs to start making it work on the second line too, right? He is a line driver. I had a good discussion. We'll call it a discussion with Ken and Weeb this morning. But he was right too on part of it. It's the fact that Ehlers is viewed as a play driver, but he can't just be a play driver on the top line when that's where he wants to play. Sometimes he's got to be a play driver on the second line. And right now, with a struggling Cole Perfetti there, it maybe even the emphasis is even more. But I also think too, at the same time, we need to see a little more kind of chemistry, a little more time, I guess, for the second line to sort of figure it out. I think the same sort of thing would apply, I think, to the power play when you get Monahan in there, but you're still trying to figure it out, right? You're trying to figure out how Monahan works, where he is. They've sort of, I think, in my opinion, we've seen now over the last 3 games, they've sorted out that there is that familiarity. But yeah, I think it's been a tough time for Cole, and I think that's not the easiest thing that they're trying to manage it right, but Cole doesn't belong on a fourth line in the NHL. He's not going to play a checking role in the NHL, so it kind of just leaves him there. And then Ehlers isn't going to play on the top line right now, even though he could. And Rick Bowness has pointed out in the past that that's an option for them, and they can go to it. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got to figure it out as a line, right? And I think there's time for them to do that. Especially if the power play starts clicking. But as we've seen with Rick Bowness too, he's only willing to give so much time, but he's just limited in his options right now, right? Because the only thing you can really do is move Ehlers up, move Velarde down, or move Connor down, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember the type of game it is, but you're still trying to find, it's like you keep moving the pieces around and you're still trying to find the one that kind of fits, and it's just not there for. So I'm curious, and I wrote about this yesterday as well. I wonder if they start looking for a middle six winger that could play on that second line. I just wonder if we're seeing here a little bit of evolution in this team, or at least where this team needs to go during the trade deadline, because I'm not so much sure they need to bolster the defense as much as you need your second line producing in the playoffs. What's the issue with it right now, and how do you sort of fix that going forward?
Here's the follow-up from that. Like, let's say that happened, and let's say that, a guy came in, I mean, I'll just throw out a guy. I mean, not that it's going to happen, but like Jake Gensel shows up, and he's going to be playing on that second line. Where does that leave Cole Perfetti? Because it's not Nikolai Ehlers that's moving down.
And I think at that point, you can understand why Cole Perfetti would then be a fourth liner right now, especially when it comes to the playoffs, right? I don't know if it's going to go over too well with Cole, but it shouldn't go over too well with him either, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you feel like you can win a Stanley Cup here or compete for a Stanley Cup here, I think, you have a young 20, 21-year-old right now who may or may not be ready for that stage in terms of being able to consistently produce, right? Cole Perfetti has a lot of great attributes about him. His vision, his defensive play can be really good at times, and he can be strong in the offensive zone. But we're still waiting, I think, for that consistency from who is effectively is a sophomore year player, right? A guy who hasn't played a full 82-game schedule yet. And I talked to Cole several weeks ago about this, but I mean, he's still learning, right? I mean, he knows that he hasn't played a full 82-game schedule, and there's unknowns, right? I mean, I saw this on Twitter today or yesterday. We're sort of in uncharted waters with Cole Perfetti right now. This is the most games he's ever played in the NHL at this point. And so we don't know how he's going to handle the rigors of a season. And the way that Rick Bowness wants this team to play a hockey game is, and Adam Lowry said it admitted it today. It said it's a tough way to play hockey, but it's a rewarding way to play hockey. It's a dominant way to play hockey when it's at its best, and they need potentially another player in that middle six, and I would say probably top six, only because what we've seen with Rick Bowness is he's not interested, and he said it again today. He's not really interested in breaking up that third line, right? He called it once again today, dominant. And not dominant maybe in the sense of producing, but dominant in the sense that he feels comfortable pulling them out after they score a goal, putting them out after they concede a goal, putting them out, when they need to shut down the other team's top lines. So,
yeah, the Minnesota game is the perfect example of that.
100%.
Did that normally. I mean, you look at, the line metrics in the share, neither of the top two lines for Winnipeg were very high, but you looked at those guys that just scored hat tricks and had 6-point games. Yep. I mean, they were essentially chasing Adam Lowry's line throughout. Yep. Let me say this about Cole, though. And I get it. He's in a slump right now.
Yep.
The NHL regular season is incredibly long, and even the best players in the National Hockey League go through slumps.
Yep.
And I would say that this time of the year is a time that many of them do exactly that. I would also point out, to defend Cole Perfetti, is that we have been talking about a team that has been a Stanley Cup contender, that has been rolling over teams, that have been dominating at 5-on-5. He has been a big part of that. And I know people will say, oh, he should play 2 more minutes or whatever. The bottom line is it's a team game. They've been winning, and it's not like he's been in the press box watching this. So we know that there's better from Cole. And Nikolai Ehlers as well. I mean, a very different situation, though, because he's a more veteran player. He has far more experience. He's done more, and I think is a more dynamic player. But going into these next 2 games, against Chicago, against Phoenix, as much as these games sort of do make me nervous, for obvious reasons, just, history and, there's no easy games in the NHL.
Yep.
I would suggest and argue that one of these 2 games would be a perfect time for these guys to sort of get their mojo back, get a few good things happening, because much like the power play, I sort of don't think that they're that far off. Having a good game or 2 and then being back to where they were is a big, big part of a team that was winning consistently and battling for first place.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when Cole Perfetti was putting up, multi-point games quite consistently, right? And you're right. I think there is part of that. And then Rick Bowness was asked about sort of motivation at this time of the year, right? The Jets are comfortably in the top 3 in the division. That's likely not going to change. I think they have a 10-point lead right now on 4th place. They're 3 points out of top spot right now. Like, I don't think there's too much concern that they're going to that they have to worry about anybody kind of catching them. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Rick also said today, this is the time in the season where guys get tired, right? Like there's a little bit of fatigue that sets in. And that's understandable. And I think it's understandable also with the way that Rick, demands his team to play the game. And I'm not, I just should clarify, I'm not writing off Cole Perfetti at all. I wonder if, and we see this with other teams, when you have a young guy who may or may not be performing consistently and you have a chance to win, sometimes those guys take a back seat. And that's the place you sort of target it at the deadline, right? I think Cole Perfetti, if he moved down to the 4th line, offers something that 4th line may not have right now. At the same time, and I think he's played well at times with Vlad Mestikov too. So there's that there. But then what happens? So who are you sitting there? Is it Barron or is it Iafallo? I don't know. I mean, we saw today in practice with Ehlers out, Iafallo's on that second line. So it's interesting. And I'm not saying either that they're going to target a top line right wing, a right winger, or it might be a right winger because they don't like playing Cole Perfetti on the right. And if they got a right winger, they'd be able to kind of maybe have a little more flexibility with some of the stuff that they want to do. But yeah, I mean, I wonder if this is sort of part of the process here is sort of while you're watching your team go through the ebbs and flows of the season, is trying to sort out what exactly they need going into the playoffs, right? Obviously, took care of probably the biggest thing on that list by getting Sean Monahan, and the impact that he's had has been, it's hard to understate, right? I mean, he's been very good and is impactful in all situations on the ice. I just do wonder if they might be looking for, Jake Gensel's probably out of the reach in terms of whatever. And I know you're just throwing it out there. I've thought about Jake Gensel too at times. But just somebody that is a little more consistent in scoring, because when it comes to playoff time, you need 2-3 lines scoring, right? And they can't be. We've seen this in the past, and it's been evident when Mark Scheifele's gone down in the playoffs how much the offense dries up on this team. I think, they need to have a potent second line that they can depend on. And maybe there's somewhere in there you find a guy that you think that will match up well and play well with Nikolai Ehlers too. I think part of the thing that you might see on that second line right now is that Nikolai Ehlers is very fast, also sometimes unpredictable in what he does. But Cole Perfetti's not that fast. And so I sometimes wonder if it's just not the right combination of players there either. But sometimes you got to make it work, or if you can't make it work, I wonder what March 8th brings for this team.
Well, and I mean, we've also got and this is back to the lines. And this is why I just think, and especially, and maybe it makes a little bit more sense that Ehlers hasn't been 100%. I mean, however they characterized it today. Yeah. Is that, I mean, I really do believe that, and again, we can talk about pros and cons from switching Connor and Ehlers with that top line. Mm-hmm. You also have to think about the second line when you make that decision. And, I know some people were asking, but has Ehlers driven a line? I mean, Ehlers absolutely has. And I think he's a better driver of a line than Kyle Connor is, despite the fact that Kyle Connor is such a brilliant goal scorer and finisher. Right. The possession that you have when Ehlers is on, the ability to gain zone entries. I mean, all of those things are important. And if you've got Adam Lowry's line playing the way they are against top competition, the top line is going to be getting their fair share of top line minutes against opponents, as well as checking lines. There's that gap there for line two, that if they are on, they can really take advantage of it. And at times this year, we have certainly seen it. So, these next couple games are going to be really interesting in the fact that, we are at a point in the season where teams are ramping up and getting ready for the playoffs. And there is, of course, probably some nerves in and around that deadline. But I think our conversations as we get ready for that St. Louis game next Tuesday after Chicago and Arizona, I think they could be significantly different depending on what we see over the next 120 minutes of hockey. Because this might be a perfect time maybe to get some of the guys that have been struggling a little bit going. We said it last week, the team just needed to score a goal. They'd had 7-7 games. The goals are coming right now, but I know the focus of Bones, just to finish up, is, it's great that we're scoring goals, but Calgary and at long stretches of the Minnesota game, this team did not look like the team that was holding it down defensively like they had before, and that's probably the number one priority for Rick.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly it, right? I mean, I think Rick Bowness wants to see this team just get back to the 5-on-5 play that was helping them win games when the power play was like, it's so funny, right? Like, for a long portion of this season, we were talking about, if this power play gets going, man, what's the next level? Like, that's the next level for this team. And where does that take them? Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about, wow, the power play is, so going so hot right now. But then the 5-on-5 play has kind of allowed other teams to kind of stick around or in Calgary, well, not only just stick around, but, score 5 unanswered to win a game. I think there is that. Just to go back to Cole for a second, I think one of the things, more than anything, if Cole Perfetti scored a goal right now, like we talk about, you talk about a guy like Adam Lowry, who is kind of the epitome of the most level-headed, stoic. Like when crap hits the fan house, not much really changes with Adam Lowry. But when you have a young player who probably isn't feeling the greatest about his game right now and just can't find the back of the net, like a goal does wonders for a guy like that. But going another game without a goal also just kind of gets him further into the hole, right? I mean, that's part of being a young player in the league. You just haven't maybe learned, and a lot of them go through this. You just haven't learned to deal with the ebbs and flows in the same way as a veteran guy. When I've talked to Cole, he sort of pointed it out. He's like, yeah, like guys like Mark and Adam can deal with this a lot better than, you know, a guy that hasn't played, you know, 700-800 games in the league already, right? So, yeah, I mean, you know, that's it, right? I think this team is starting to feel better about itself, but there's still some things, you know, last few games where they've kind of gotten away from it 5-on-5, and you know, I think once they sort of put it together in the right way, and I think even the Minnesota game, though, was a good example of this team at least catching itself, right? Because the second wasn't good, but the third period was much better. And one of the things this Jets team has really done well most of this season is if they do have a bad period, they have a good one. They followed up with a good one, and they don't let it kind of linger. And we saw that linger in Calgary, right? It was an off day or whatever. The good news was that for the team and for fans is that they caught themselves in that after that second period. They figured it out, and they righted the ship and won a hockey game. So yeah, it's an interesting time for the team. It's just part of the story of how this team is kind of evolving and kind of working through some of the problems that it has.
Well, big opportunity going on the road to Chicago and coming back with the team that hasn't won in forever in the Coyotes. In that, you would presume that there is the opportunity to right the ship and get back to doing the things that have made you successful. But you have to do it. And because if it doesn't happen, it's even more glaring if you don't get the results. Scotty, we'll look forward to more of your Jets coverage in the Winnipeg Sun and talk to you next week. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
Mike McIntyre is coming up in just a second. And you know what? We'll have Bones after Mike. And we've got a bunch of clips that Remis has been cutting while we were talking to Scott. But I just want to play one quick clip from Adam Lowry because he is the conscience of this team. He is the captain of this team. And he spoke after practice today on just getting away from their strong 5-on-5 play. Let's play this from Adam Lowry and then bring in Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press.
Yeah, I think we can agree the 5-on-5. Especially the last two, it hasn't been what we expect out of ourselves. I think we were a lot better in the third period against Mini, and same with the first period. I think it was a little lackadaisical second period, just puck management, uncharacteristic turnovers, some bad changes by us, and things like that really led to the opportunities that they got. And, same with Calgary. Calgary, our gap, we were a little slow. We weren't playing that high pressure game that we expect of ourselves, and when we're really defending well, we're taking away a lot of time, taking away a lot of space. Really good sorts on the rush. There's not a lot of time coming through the neutral zone, and we kind of got away from that. And so we watched some video, and I think moving forward we can expect to get back to that level that we had been at for the longest time. It's tough playing that way, but that's the commitment to our structure. That's the commitment we've made, and that's what we expect out of this group. And we're going to strive for perfection. Bones mentioned it's an imperfect game, and there's going to be mistakes and things like that, and other teams are going to get chances. But it's all about how many chances you can minimize, how many chances you're not giving away for free, and that's going to be to be a work in progress for us, and it's going to be a challenge for us tomorrow against Chicago.
All right, there's the captain. We'll have the coach a little bit later on. And hey, a big thanks to Stan Scott for the very generous super chat. Thanks, Stan. Stan says, I think it's a tricky balance to stay as defensive when you are trying to get the offense going. Also, it's hard to stay consistent for 82 games. Do any teams really do that? Some do better than others, Stan. And the Jets have been great at that for the most part this year. But I think it's an astute point that, expecting that 82 straight, it just simply doesn't happen. And, there've been some hiccups. Bottom line is the wins have been coming in Monday afternoon, notwithstanding. And a big opportunity in these next couple of games to keep this thing rolling inside the division. Mike's going to join us in just a sec. As I mentioned, tomorrow we're hoping to have Dalton Schoen jump on the program, which should be a lot of fun heading into the weekend. Dalton's got an event tomorrow here in Winnipeg at the Bomber Store. We'll fill you in on about that. And really looking forward to Bomber season. And of course, all our Blue Bomber reports brought to you by Princess Auto, the official partner of the Bombers. Home now. They'll be playing at Princess Auto Stadium, and we'll be packing those Princess Auto tailgates before Bomber games coming up this season. So join us for Dalton Schoen tomorrow, Bomber fans. And again, Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them at one of their 2 locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Proudly founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg. It's Princess Auto. Speaking of headquartered and founded here in Winnipeg, how about our friends at Wallace & Wallace, Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist? They've been doing it as the leaders in both since 1946. And listen, spring is just around the corner. We'll see those fences up and the trucks all around the city. But while we get through this Winnipeg winter, and the weather is going to be nuts, really warm, really cold over the next week, depending on what day you wake up on, this is a perfect time to make sure that your garage door is ready to go for the rest of winter into the summer, because as we know, winter puts far more stress on a garage door. Now you can give Wallace & Wallace a call to book your inspection and maintenance service call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. There's certainly only one name you need to know when it comes to great menswear at awesome prices in Winnipeg, and that, of course, is F Apparel. Guys, if you're looking to up your menswear game heading into spring and summer, you need to get down to F right now. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you are in a wedding or in a wedding party, make sure to get the guys together and talk to the folks at F about a 15% discount when you get your suits for the big day at F Apparel that you can wear long beyond the big day. F's at 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more or make an appointment online at F, that's EPHapparel.com. All right, always enjoy our weekly conversation with Mike McIntyre. And Mike joins us now to get the latest on the Winnipeg Jets practice. And I have to admit, I quite enjoyed your tweet coming out of the weekly newsletter from the mind of Mike McIntyre with the, shall we say, fickle nature of part of the fan base right now that has been all over the map over the last few weeks.
Yeah, a bit of a identity crisis for the Jets, I guess. You look at the way they played on Saturday, Monday.
Mike, hold on one sec. Mike, hold on one sec. Remis, you just got that echo?
We're getting an echo.
I think
Sorry, I thought I got rid of that. 1 sec. Okay, try now.
I think we're better now,
Yeah,
yes.
perfect. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, the Jets, a bit of a identity crisis in terms of game-to-game Saturday to Monday, which we have not seen a lot from this Jets team this year. They've been the picture of consistency, and maybe not surprisingly, some fans are all over the map too. It really struck me, Huss, as I sat in Calgary on Monday afternoon covering that game. Like, I get that, there's a few players that some fans want to always kind of go after. Logan Stanley is one example, Kyle Connor. But when I started to get messages blasting Connor Hellebuck of all people, and I did get a bunch of those on Monday, like, to me, that's when this kind of jumped the shark. And it's like, my goodness, I can't imagine, like, first of all, I'm not here to tell anybody how to fan. You can fan however you want to fan. I'm not a fan. I cover the team. Doesn't matter to me if they win or lose. I just can't imagine how exhausting it would be to be all over the map, not just game to game, but sometimes period to period with this team. And I get that, social media, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, a lot of folks, the hot takes, they flow fast and furious, emphasis on furious. But, as I kind of looked at the deluge of messages that I've got just in the last few days, and as you see on the screen here, I and that's just some of them, guys. There was way more than that I could have used. This is just over the last few days on a 34, 15-5 hockey team that is first in the Central, if you go on point percentage, second in the West, fifth in the NHL. If you just showed this to somebody and didn't tell them what Winnipeg's record was, as I wrote in my newsletter today, which, by the way, is free, there's no paywall. And if you want to get it in your email inbox, just click on the link and it'll get emailed out to you every Thursday afternoon. But you would think that the Jets are competing with the Sharks and the Blackhawks and the Ducks and, for last place in the NHL. And again, I'm not telling anyone how to fan. It's just, as I said, this feels exhausting to me to see, some of the angst out there. And this is when things are going pretty well. I get that they lost on Monday, and a lot of people, that one loss seemed to really set a lot of people off. I'll tell you this, Huss, the Jets have 28 games left, I think, as we sit here today. They're going to lose a bunch more. I can guarantee it. Because, they're not going to go 28-0. Nobody's going 28-0 over the last. So they're going to lose a bunch more games. They might even lose tomorrow. And as I say, my advice to some folks at the end of this newsletter was just breathe, folks. The NHL season, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I don't get this whole using every shift, every period, every game as some kind of referendum on the current state of affairs. As I say, it just strikes me as exhausting. I felt it was kind of worth touching on. I know, look, I posted this on Twitter, which I know is kind of like throwing steak to a bunch of hungry dogs.
I was just about to say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but, it's remarkable. And as I wrote, Huss, it's the very vocal minority. My email inbox in the last couple hours since this newsletter went out, I think I'm up to about 30 emails I've got from people, and every one of them, and I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, I'm just saying the different tone of different forums. All of the emails are like, yeah, that's why I don't go on Twitter. That's why I hate social media. You said what I've often thought. Of course, I expect the responses on Twitter will probably be the polar opposite. In fact, I've already seen a few of them. So, it reinforces a couple things that I've always thought. First of all, there are some people out there who are only happy when they're unhappy. And that's not just sports, that goes for just life in general. And secondly, Twitter, social media is not real life. It is but a snapshot, and I would say at times a very misleading snapshot of the silent majority who probably think and function a little different. But anyways, it just struck me this week. And as I said, the topper for me was when Connor Hellebuck suddenly came under attack from a bunch of people because he didn't have his best game in Calgary. The Connor Hellebuck, who's having a career year, who's probably the runaway favorite to win the Vezina, who's a legitimate Hart Trophy candidate, and who just had his 31-game historical streak of 3 goals or less come to an end, one of the best in NHL history. When people started attacking Connor Hellebuck, that's where I just went like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, jumping the shark is a good way to put it. I just did a show with Dustin Nielsen who said people are really fired up. McDavid hasn't scored in 7 games. What's going on? I mean, I'll just say this, and you are right. And I think most people, like if you actually interact with other people, Jet fans, I mean, I make a point of, I record the games. I usually like to go out with a bunch of people and watch the games. And I'd stay away from my phone for the most part during the game. Because, you really can get, and listen, as I say, everyone's got the right to their own take or whatever, but there's a lot of folks in particular forums or whatever that are, and especially when you've made a case where you've been hammering on one thing or one guy for a long time, you're almost watching the game to prove yourself right. And then whenever there's an evidence of something you did, you're kind of going back to it over and over again. And I mean, I think it's healthy for fans as much as I love social media and I'm on it quite a bit. There is something to be said for taking a step back, watching the game yourself, talking with some other voices or opinions that might not be as involved in those areas. And I think that, to your point, I think that the vast majority of people are pretty darn happy about where this club is right now in the direction of it. All that being said, this last month or so has been very different than most of the season. The team couldn't score for the better part of 2.5 or 3 weeks, 7 goals in 7 games. They came back and broke that 5-game losing streak with a couple of wins that didn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence in them, and 2-1 over Pittsburgh hanging on, and then the 1-0 game. And what were we talking about? This team is screwed. The power play, fire the guys in charge of the power play, change it all up. And now all of a sudden the power play is as hot as it's been, thank you to Ken Wiebe, in a stretch since 2012. So we're talking about 12 years here with 6 goals and 11. And again, it's a very small sample size, but they were almost due, and that's exactly what they needed. But they have, and we just heard from Adam Lowry, have gotten away a little bit at times, especially on Monday, and I would suggest in the second period on Tuesday against Minnesota, away from the foundation of their game that got them to where they are in the standings in the first place. Some guys have started to score again. Others are still sort of mired in a slump. Mike, coming out of the Minnesota game, going into 2 games against teams that are far, far from the playoff line, what do you make of the Winnipeg Jets right now, coming out of practice today, and where they move from here, trying to get some of those guys going that haven't been, but most importantly, I'm sure to bonus, getting back to their defensive structure that has been, as I've said, the foundation of their success?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, Huss, like my level of concern with this Jets team right now is minimal. And the biggest reason for that is, I think at the end of the day, where this Jets team of 2023-24 is really going to be judged is not how they're playing over a couple weeks in February or even how they're playing in March. It's what they're doing starting in mid-April. This Jets team has shown that it has the tools, it has the structure, it has the foundation to be a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And you know, the jury is going to be out on this team ultimately until we see how they perform in the playoffs. Because this is no longer a team, and maybe some thought at the beginning of the year, this is a team, you know, that was going to have to fight and claw just to get into the playoffs. We're past that point. I mean, it's going to take something monumental for the Jets to fall out of the top 3. So they're not going to be in a wild card spot. They're in a fight for first. And as Rick Bowness touched upon today, like, obviously it would be nice to win the division. I think if you're the Jets, you'd like to win the conference. And I say that just because, to me, the only potential easier, and it won't be easy, but the easier matchup is going to be playing the second wildcard team, because I look at that Pacific division and you've got Vancouver, Vegas, Edmonton, LA. Like, one of those teams, and it might very well be the Kings, is going to be the first wild card team, very likely. And I don't care which of those 4, like, that's not a favorable matchup. It's not an easy matchup, that's for sure. So, you know, winning the conference might get you at least, you know, St. Louis or Nashville or Calgary or whoever manages to grab that last spot. But bottom line to me, yeah, there's some concerns for sure. With the Jets play. The concerns have shifted a little bit here recently, as you pointed out. The 5-on-5 play have been exceptional. The defensive play have been exceptional. Special teams were a disaster. All of a sudden now, power play's cooking. But defensively, 5-on-5, yeah, there's been a bit of a setback. But as I say, I'm not going to put all that much stock into what that looks like right now. I think this team is learning lessons as they go along here. And at the end of the day, they have the muscle memory, if you will, to hopefully go back to their roots and what's got them to where they are. But we won't really be able to fully evaluate and judge until the stage gets bigger in mid-April. So, you know, yeah, there's some growing pains here. Look at every team in the league, even the best teams out there. Vancouver was running away with the President's Trophy a week ago. Now they've lost 3 in a row, and there's all kinds of angst. Boston had a extended losing streak recently. The Rangers hit a skid. Like, every team's going to have these ebbs and flows, these peaks and valleys. For the Jets, I think this is important to point out. Winnipeg's valley so far, the biggest valley right now is 3 games, like 3 regulation losses in a row. And yes, they had that 5-game winless streak. But, if that ends up being the biggest valley of the year, you're in a pretty good spot at the end of the season over 82 games.
Well, and the team's in a very good spot right now, as we mentioned. And I mean, you look around, Dallas has lost 3 in a row. The Avalanche have been middling over the last little while. And even with that 5-game winless streak and a very disappointing game against Calgary on Monday, the Jets right now, to your point, by points percentage, are the best team in the division. They've got some extra games to play to catch up.
Yeah.
And they need to get back. And it's not about what the other teams are doing. It's about what they're doing right now. And, as I said, we're going to hear from Bones in a minute. But, I thought Adam Lowry put it very well as we led into this this segment. They know what they have to do. They know how they got to be where they are, and they as a team need to do that. As far as the second line goes right now, just quick thoughts on Ehlers and what you learned that, he wasn't at practice today because he has dealing with something. Does that make a little more sense, his recent struggles? And as I pointed out earlier, and I'll just repeat it for you, it's a long 82-game season. All teams, all players at times go through slumps. I think Perfetti, particularly in the longest season of his professional career, has hit a bit of a skid right now, but that can change quickly. And both he and Nikolai Ehlers have been big parts of this team's success so far this season. And Mike, when I look at these games against Chicago and against Arizona, first things first, you want to win, you want to get 2 points. I think what I'm most hopeful of is that maybe a couple things can go well for that line. They can start feeling it a little bit more, because if that happens, I think the Jets are in a really good place.
Yeah. So first off on Nikolai Ehlers, absolutely. I think, and Rick Bowness the other day alluded to, like, there may be more going on here than everyone is aware of in terms of deployment and ice time and all that. And again, this goes back to what we started off talking about, a lot of fans with their hot takes. They may not have all the facts. And we, media, may not have all the facts either. And it goes back to, one of the other things that I've been hit with a bunch of messages is this idea that we in the media aren't properly holding, Rick Bowness and the coaching staff accountable. I've lost track of how many messages, why don't you ask this? You're afraid to ask that. Fact of the matter is, and I just did it again on Monday in Calgary when we were on the road, and Rick Bowness gave a very long, detailed answer, provocative, I would say, answer about Ehlers and Perfetti, and we're not just going to hand out ice time. We're well past that point. I think, again, some people mistake when they disagree with the answer the coach gives. They think we in the media, like, we should be pushing back and really going after the coaching staff. We're the messenger here. We ask the questions. If you don't like the answers, I mean, that's fair. That's entirely fair. The idea of these sort of that we should be confronting the coach and, I think the Ehlers situation points to that there's probably more going on here than we know. And today it came out because he missed the practice. And the fact is, Nikolai Ehlers hasn't really looked like himself lately. And we find out today maybe that's for a good reason, because he's probably dealing with some kind of hidden injury. I can tell you, Huss, there's a lot of guys. I don't know who they all are, but there are a bunch of guys right now that are dealing with different things. There was another bug going through the room on the road trip last week. We know Morgan Barron didn't even make it out of the third period because he was hurling during the intermission in Vancouver. So there's guys that are not even close to 100%. There's reasons, for example, they've had extra guys taking the pregame warm-up because there's been question marks. Presumably, Nikolai Ehlers has been one of them. And I think that probably explains why his ice time isn't where it is and where his performance isn't where it is. And by default, you could say, well, Cole Perfetti, because he plays with Ehlers, he's kind of been dragged down a little bit as well. His ice time gets down. I'll say this, though, Huss. I actually thought Cole Perfetti showed some encouraging signs the other day against the Wild. He had a really good chance. I think it was in the second period. And as Scotty just said, as he was on with you, at this point, probably just needs something to go right for him to get a little bit of confidence back. It's no doubt extremely low right now. But, I think at the end of the day, Cole Perfetti is a very talented player. Nikolai Ehlers is a very talented player. These guys will figure it out. And again, I guess for me, I'm a little more worried, or I'd be more worried if we were now into early to mid-April and the games are really, impactful and we were seeing what we're seeing. Let's just wait and see what these guys look like as the spotlight gets a little bigger here.
Mike, before we break, I want to go back to Tuesday night for a minute. Were you surprised that there was seemingly no heat on Ryan Hartman? And, what do you take away from that?
I was a little bit, yeah. Because and sometimes I think we in the media and maybe the fans, we build these up and then, not a whole lot
Guilty
happens.
as charged.
Yeah, but I honestly thought just the way that played out on the New Year's Eve game and with the revelation of Hartman saying he deliberately, it was interesting, Huss. Like, I was traveling back on Tuesday, but you no doubt would have seen, I only saw the written transcript. I didn't see the Bowness deliver the comments himself, but did it not almost seem as if Rick Bowness, who's certainly old school, almost suggested that Cole Perfetti never should have said anything about that?
Yeah, he said he wasn't pleased the way that it got out, and from what I understand, I don't think that was just Cole deciding on his own that. These guys are coached pretty well by an experienced PR team. They're not doing that in a vacuum.
Yeah, I have a little bit of insight of how that all came out at the time, and some players were certainly vocal about it in the room. Now it almost seemed like Rick Bowness kind of regretted that it came to light. I do wonder, Huss, we talk about things we don't know. Like, I wonder, did the NHL have a little chat with the Jets in the Wild? Did somebody, contact both teams and say, you know what, we're going to be watching extra close here? We've already seen, Huss, a couple recent examples in the NHL of, quote, revenge gone wrong. Morgan Riley, and we saw how he got hammered by the league for an act of revenge, that wasn't a hockey play. So I don't know. I thought Ryan Hartman was a bit of a non-factor the other day. Like, he was doing Ryan Hartman things early, took a couple runs at guys. There was a couple slashes and stuff, but I am a little surprised it didn't get a little more out of hand, especially as the score got to what it was. Like, I thought, okay, here we go. The
one thing, when it got to 5-1, it very quickly got to 5-3, and all of a sudden, I think less concern. But I guess, and I'm not suggesting doing anything like the garbage that, Hartman did to Cole Perfetti. But for a team, and Rick Bowness has always said, hey, we're a family. You do something to us, you do something to everybody. I was surprised, and I'd be, I guess, from a fan's perspective, a little disappointed that, at least no one went up and challenged, Hartman to drop the gloves or something like that. Yeah. And I can guarantee you, and this I will take to the grave, if the roles were reversed and the Jets were in the Wild situation and Minnesota was the team that felt they'd been wronged, and a guy on the Jets had taken 2 cheap shots at players on their team, and that game was in Minnesota, that game would have looked nothing like the game that took place in Winnipeg on Tuesday night. Take that to the bank.
Well, you're right, Huss, because look back to December 31st. Pat Maroon fights Adam Lowry like right off the opening faceoff. And Pat Maroon had no issue with Adam Lowry, to be clear. That was strictly because of what had happened the day before with Kirill Kaprizov, even though Brendan Dillon had already fought Jake Middleton after the Kaprizov incident. So, yeah, it did feel a little bit like, Ryan Hartman kind of didn't get his comeuppance. Now, maybe to the Jets, the ultimate revenge was beating them for a third straight time. And hey, as the fans and the 300s were very vocal, pointing out, thank you, Hartman, when he took, a kind of a dumb, selfish penalty there in the third period that quickly leads to a Jets goal and, kind of put that game out of reach. So, they do have one more meeting, Huss, and it is in Minnesota. We'll see where both teams are. That's the Jets' final road trip of the year in early April. I'll be interested to see where the Jets have they sewn up a top 3 spot at that point, and where are the Wild at that point? Are the Wild still in a playoff fight? in early April, or are they already into next year territory? So we'll see how the fourth and final edition of that matchup goes this year.
Mike, great stuff as always. Of course, folks, check out Mike's reporting on the Jets in the Free Press, but also check the newsletter. It's a spicy one this week, and at Mike McIntyre on Twitter as well. Thanks for doing this, dude. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet, Huss. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Lots more to come on the program. Busy night in the National Hockey League. We're going to get to that in a few minutes, as well as great conversation with Chris Glowach when the Sport Manitoba takes a community to play. But we're going to hear from Rick Bowness coming up in just a moment. But before we do that, let me give a big cheers to the gang down at Little Brown Jug. We'll be back at the rink at Canada Life Center. Of course, tickets still available for Sunday and Tuesday. Big divisional games for the Jets, Coyotes, and the St. Louis Blues. And if you weren't already aware, now you are. Little Brown Jug Classics 1919 and generic lager available at Craft Beer Corners, section 124 downstairs and section 310 in the upper bowl. And of course, that great generic lager that continues to grow here in Manitoba, available at your local Manitoba liquor marts or beer stores for the great low price of $19.99 for an 8-pack of tall boy cans. So pick that up today. And of course, pop by and see our friends at Little Brown Jug at the brewery and tap room, the best place to enjoy LBJ on William Avenue. Check them online as well at littlebrownjug.ca with local delivery options. Super Bowl championship gear coming into Royal Sports by the day. I'll be heading down there this weekend to grab a bunch, celebrating the Chiefs win. But it doesn't matter what team you support, because if you need to up your fan gear, Royal Sports is that spot. Thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, all the jerseys, customized with your favorite player's name and number. Not to mention so many hoodies, jackets, T-shirts, lids, toques. They've got it all. Bombers, NFL, Jays, spring training's on. You got the Blue Jays merch as well for the new season. And a lot of great stuff from the last few years, so you don't have to deal with the new Fanatics junk as well. Just an aside on that. The biggest and best hockey section in town. Snowboards, boots, and bindings just in time for spring break, and all the cool stuff on the King Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Get on down to Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And of course, you can also follow them on Instagram. I would suggest it, at Royal Sports Pembina, for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, we got a big slate of games, which we'll get to tonight. No Jets, though. They'll play tomorrow in Chicago. But whether the Jets are on or not, the best place to gather with your gang to watch it is at your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And always the big game on the big screen with big sound at your local Boston Pizza. Staying at home, order online at bostonpizza.ca. All right, let's hear from head coach Rick Bowness. Bones was peppered with questions heading onto the road today, on to Chicago. And he talked about the scoring outburst from the club over the last 3 games.
Well, this is the time of year when the guys are a little tired, right? They are, and all around the league. I'm not talking about us. And I see it. I watch the games at night, and I see more scoring chances in the league now than earlier in the year. And then it'll tighten up again. It will tighten up again.
It'll tighten up, and I'm sure he hopes that his team, as we heard from Adam Lowry earlier, can get back to being tightened up. Bones also kind of got a little bit more into the explosion on the power play at the same time, kind of bouncing off his last answer of a little slipping in the 5-on-5 play.
We've taken great pride in our team game all year. We have now. We go into Vancouver and it's a dominant game, and then we let it slip against Calgary, and we let it slip in the second period against Minnesota. So that's the challenge. That's what we face as coaches, is to get that standard of play high and keep it at a consistent level. That's always a challenge for every coach.
So what is the challenge for you right now then, doing trying to get that? Because it seemed like you caught yourself last game in the third period. But in Calgary, maybe not necessarily.
Yeah, we didn't have the same energy in Calgary. We got it back in the third, but a lot of the issues is self-inflicted. A lot of it is puck management. You watch us going through the neutral zone, and when you turn the puck over where we are, it's a scramble. You lose all sense of structure because you got everyone coming up one way, and all of a sudden you're coming back. So a big part of it is managing the puck, especially in the second period, managing the puck going through the neutral zone, and so. And we got caught in a couple of bad changes because we didn't manage the puck. It went back in our zone. Now they're tired. Now they're making bad changes. So a lot of it is related to that. But that being said, there was also some rush D that we didn't cover like we normally would cover. So, we didn't practice between Calgary and Minnesota, obviously. So you try to straighten it out today in practice and with the video we did this morning.
Good stuff from Bones with Scott Billeck. And Billeck followed it up, and he mentioned this when we spoke with Scott earlier today on a question to Bonus regarding Kyle Connor, and essentially asked if he gets more leeway on giveaways, and then touches on Nikolai Ehlers and his injury status right here.
Would a Kyle Connor giveaway be weighted differently than a Nikolai Ehlers giveaway?
No.
Just right now? No?
No.
Okay.
No, they're all the same.
Okay.
Do we give some players, a little more leeway? Nick's in that group. They get a little more leeway. But there comes a point where your teammates and the time of the game and the score and everything, you've just got to make the right play. But no, they're all the same.
Well, and I guess on Ehlers, he wasn't out there today.
No, he's been battling something, so we got to we'll keep him off the ice and let him see if we can get this thing going again. But he's been battling it for a little bit now.
Injury then?
Yeah. Nagging injury, that's, yeah. Pardon me? We do expect him to play tomorrow. But again, with this, and you keep him off today and yesterday, and you hope he's feeling better tomorrow. But again, if it's sore, then we're not gonna make it any worse. Let's put it that way.
Something new or recurring?
It's been, it's new, recurring, yeah. Yeah, it's a nagging injury, so yeah. So you had them both.
I will say Bones always cracks me up when he gets these questions about the injuries, and we know how NHL coaches and teams and players are. What injury? Is it new or recurring? Yeah, I mean, this is some classic Bones. Okay, this is an answer I'm quite interested to hear because, as I mentioned, I think yesterday, you come out of a big win like that, and then you look at the schedule, and it's a one game in Chicago where the Jets lost an OT earlier this year, and then a home game against the Coyotes, who have been absolutely horrible the last little while. These are games that you certainly expect to have. But Bones was asked about, if the team's motivation changes at all based on their opponent, kind of looking back at how they played against Vancouver and Minnesota and the game against Calgary sandwiched in between.
Well, yeah, I mean, you go into Vancouver, and it's the two top teams going head-to-head, and you look at Vancouver, they went into Minnesota and gave up 10 2 days later, right? So Talk's facing the same challenges. We all face those challenges when you have that emotional game. It's a playoff game, and just to get them back up again at that level, it's not an automatic. But again, that's a challenge for us as coaches, is to try to keep pushing that envelope a little higher.
All right, so there's Bones on that, and then this is just sort of a follow up on that. If there are concerns about motivation at this time of the year, which often is that sort of lull before that race to the finish line, especially for a team comfortably in a playoff spot.
We do our best every day to keep the focus on the process. We do, regardless who we're playing, regardless of where we're playing, which is easier said than done. But that is the challenge. Yeah, it is.
Does the division title mean much?
Well, we don't talk about those things. We talk about the next game. Those things, if you take care of the process and you take game to game, those things will take care of itself. And there's still 28 games to go. So the guys know where we stand, right? So, yeah, those things will, we as coaches, we can, I know what I'm thinking, and but my job is to deal with the process every day.
All right, there's Bones a little bit more on the process and getting ready for these games against Chicago. Listen, the Adam Lowry line was phenomenal on a Monday, Tuesday, I guess, against the Minnesota Wild. I mean, that was as good of a game as they'd had in a while. Obviously, a big goal by Mason Appleton helped that, but I mean, it was more the way they went head-to-head with a line that was as hot as any in the NHL coming into the game. Bones expanded a little bit more on the foundation of his forward lines and why that Lowry line has been kept together as long as it is.
It's a dominant line. It is. And, the easy thing, okay, take one, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. But when you got a dominant line that's controlled in play and it's doing, you got to remember that the roles that I'm putting them in. When we get scored against, they're going on the ice, make sure to settle things down. We get scored against, they're going back out, get the forecheck going again. So that's their role, play against the opposition's top lines. It's when we have the last line change at home. So, I mean, it's worked to this point, and nothing's is written in stone. Doesn't mean that we won't move some of those guys around if we need to. We just haven't felt that need yet.
Here's one in the lineup, and this was just Bones talking about the lineup decisions last game. Of course, Rasmus Kupari came in, as did Logan Stanley. Morgan Barron and Nate Schmidt were out. Here's what he had to say on those decisions.
Like Nate, we pulled them out not because of bad play, because of all the games that are coming up, right? And we need everyone playing. Coop hasn't played for a while. We got to get him in. But with the schedule that we're facing now, we don't want to throw a guy in the middle of March who hasn't played for a while, because the games, again, they get more and more important. So it's important to us, and at home ice we get last change. And so neither one of them were scratched for a bad play. They weren't now, but we have to keep everyone that's here playing best we can.
All right, so there's Bones on that. No surprise on the answer to that. And one more on competition and the benefits of competition for ice time at this time of year, as well as the challenge of a Blackhawks team that now has Connor Bedard. We all remember what he can do in overtime when these teams played earlier this year in Chicago.
Well, if we have the luxury of that fourth line giving us good quality minutes. If we have to shorten the bench, we'll shorten the bench. But again, you can't get burnt out early in March by rolling three lines out there with a lot of games coming up and a lot of travel. So it's monitoring that ice time and making sure that fourth line is giving us good quality minutes so and give the other guys a bit of a breather.
It's been a tough season for Chicago, but they've played you relatively tough. I mean,
yeah.
What stood out about your games with them so far?
Really, we went in we lost that one in overtime. It was unbelievable, the performance he put on. We've had a tough time scoring on that guy. It's not that we haven't created a ton of scoring chances against him. We had, and that game we lost in overtime, it was 2-1, more than 2-1 chance for and against. We've had a tough time putting the puck in the net behind him, so give him credit. But we've played them better than the score indicates. That being said, we have to find a way to score, and we need the 2 points.
There is Bones, Winnipeg Jets head coach Rick Bowness on Winnipeg Sports Talk from earlier today post-practice. Jets probably getting in the air right about now. Game day tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. at United Center. Big weekend in Chicago with Chris Chelios getting his number retired on Sunday. Apparently Michael Jordan going to be showing up for that one. Jordan doesn't make too many public appearances in the Windy City, but for his boy Chelly, he's going to be doing exactly that. We're busy night tonight in the National Hockey League. We'll get to that in just a minute. Got to give a shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake, who are getting ready for another big fishing season in paradise here in Manitoba. If you're looking for a fly-in fishing experience, a unique one where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is that spot. And as incredible as the world-class fishing is, the hospitality of the Terren family and the Aikens team might be even better than that. I'm counting down the days to get back out there this summer. Why don't you take a look, whether it's for a friend's, a family trip, a business trip with some colleagues or customers. There's nothing like Aikens Lake. Find out more online, aikenslake.com, and also check out their socials at Aikens Lake. This is a really great interview coming up, folks. We will get to the lines coming up for Cool Bet in a few minutes and talk about a very busy night in the National Hockey League. But today on the Sport Manitoba, it takes a community to play segment brought to you by our friends at Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. We welcome in two-time Manitoba Marathon champion and Manitoba Sports Hall of Famer, Chris Glowach. All right, it's time for another segment with our friends at Sport Manitoba. It takes a community to play, supported by the good folks at Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. And this is an absolute pleasure to welcome in a Manitoba running legend, a member of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, and one of a very short list of Manitobans to win the Manitoba Marathon. Manitoba Sports Hall of Famer Chris Glowach joins us now. Chris, it is so good to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm great, and talking from Mexico, it's even better. So
yeah, no doubt. We've caught you at a good time, enjoying. I will tell you, it's pretty nice here. All things considered, I'm sure the winter runners are enjoying the weather so far this year.
We've had an awesome winter in Winnipeg, and I've always joked my wife is still competitive, not competitive, but she still runs. So I always joke that at one time I was one of the fastest runners in the country. And no, I'm not even the fastest in the family.
You know, you've got such an incredible story. But I want to focus in on your start because, you know, I was watching the video of your Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame induction, and some of your closest friends pointed out how growing up you were far from quote unquote an athlete. Tell us about growing up and how you got into running in the first place.
Oh, my friend that threw me under the bus.
Yeah, that's him.
No, it's true. I didn't do anything, and I was too short and to play volleyball and basketball. And back then, it was a big time thing in high school athletics. So I didn't really run a step in my life until I met my wife in high school, or future wife in high school. We've been together almost 50 years now. And her family was runners. So I thought, well, I better try this. So I tried it, and her dad and I decided we're going to run the first Manitoba Marathon. But we weren't going to run the whole thing because I'd never run more than 6 miles before in my life. And either had he. So his goal was to go 6 or 8 miles, and they had exit with dignity at that time. So you could exit any time on the course, get a certificate, and be done with it. Well, 20 or 21-year-old Chris decided he was going to feeling pretty good. So I carried on. And at halfway, I decided, well, I might as well finish this thing. And I did finish it. And it took a few days to really say I enjoyed it because I was in so much pain. And I remember the next day I had to drive my vehicle to Brandon. I had a Toyota Corolla it would have been a 1980, whatever year it was. I had to drive my car to Brandon, and I had to crawl out of my parents' house to get into the car, and then use my knee to push the pedal down, put pedal down to even change gears. So, but you know, after a few days, I was planning my next marathon.
What was it like finishing? I mean, from a plan of just going out and trying to hang with your future father-in-law to actually crossing the, at what point did you catch the bug? I mean, was it at the end realizing that you did it and could do it? Or was it later after the fact going, hey, I've already done one, maybe I can get into this a little more seriously?
Well, it was funny because I actually surprisingly did it in 3 hours and 19 minutes, which for never running before,
That's a natural.
It is a natural, and I don't come from a family of athletes. Like I said, I mentioned my dad when we were talking earlier about curling, but I was never really brought up a really athletic family. And it took, well, I ran the second one, so and then improved a little bit, but never really got serious about running. I don't know if I ever got serious about it. I just fell in love with it, and you know, the biggest thing with running was, the one thing I heard was, there was a thing that said, I read an article that said, running has no skills. You put one foot in front of the other and repeat. And I thought, well, that's pretty good for a non-athletic person. So I just thought, well, I just did it more and more and more and became decent at it.
Well, decent. You're too modest. I mean, for someone that didn't take it and wasn't really serious in it, it has become a huge part of your life. And I mean, you went back to back in 97 and 98 as a homegrown Manitoba Marathon champion. I mean, I'm sure over the course of, your incredible career with over 80 marathons, that those must stand out. Tell us about preparing and then being a contender and actually winning it.
You know what's funny is, I think how can I put it? Like I say, the family connection, and then I don't know where this came from because I didn't really train. I had I've never had a coach really. Never was coached properly. Never did proper nutrition. Nothing like that. And I will say when you asked the question about what my favorite marathon was, it was still, and what I taught people in my clinics was crossing the finish line for the first time is still the most memorable one. Sure, absolutely winning at 97 was a thrill because to be the first Manitoba born, to have John Robertson, Hall of Fame broadcaster at the finish line, putting a medal around my neck and he said, I've never heard Pan Am Stadium that loud ever, even at the Pan Am games when they were here in 67. So I guess because I was well known through owning the running room with my wife, Lynn. So when they announced that I was coming in, the first Manitoba born and who I was, I'll never forget that.
Our pal Jeff Kerbison did a great write-up on you, and folks, you can read about Chris's career at the Hall of Fame inductee spotlight at the Sport Manitoba website. And this is from the 2023 class for the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. But Chris, what I didn't know, I mean, I've known your name for a long time. I knew you were synonymous with the sport in Manitoba and have been involved in so many different things. I wasn't aware of how you lost the majority of your sight and then still completed the marathon in a pretty impressive time in 2004. I mean, fill us in on the challenges that you went through during that period of time and how you were able to stay in the game.
Well, what they did was the Manitoba Marathon approached me and decided they were going to make me the poster child for the 1984, I guess get the dates mixed, the years mixed up, but
2004, I think, was the one.
You're right. So they approached me after I lost my vision in 2003, and they asked if I'd be the poster child. And then they created a team around me that people had to raise money to be on Chris's team, and which was a huge honor for me. And so we had people that ran. We trained together. We did events together, and people had to raise, I think, $1,000 to be on Chris's team. So we raised some money for the Association for Community Living at the time. And then I thought, well, I'm still in okay shape. So I thought, and the media coverage of me running it was crazy. I mean, they had national news. I know even they did a 10-minute documentary on me with CBC on the National with Peter Mansbridge. And then the media coverage, I thought every step of the way on the marathon route, I thought all these vehicles around me covering me. It was like, if it had been a white Bronco, it would have felt like the Bronco OJ. And so it was pretty intense, and I stopped and visited. I could have broke 3 hours that day. I was in pretty good shape still. But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy it. I stopped and walked with people that were still in just doing the half marathon. And I stopped and visited with them and people that had inspired me or cheered me on over the years. And I've run that course since 1979, the same Manitoba Marathon course. They've changed it recently to go the opposite way, but for all those years to run that course and have the cheering, Kevin Donnelly, you probably know Kevin.
Of course.
in his he did a part of the tribute to me in the Hall of Fame evening, and he said it was kind of cool because I didn't even know he was doing this whole thing. It was all a surprise to all of us that were doing they did their talks, and Kevin said if there was a mayoralty race on that weekend, I would have been the mayor of the city. So.
Well, I mean, listen, it's an inspiring story from the beginning with, not being a person that was involved in tons of sports, sort of just finding her way into a challenge and then, having this great career. But, maybe if you can speak to, the work you've done, probably inspiring people with disabilities, particularly vision-wise when it comes to participating in sport, period, but especially running. And then your work with Joints in Motion, which, was a big part of the induction tribute to you with what you've done sort of away from the track.
It's interesting because I worked for the Arthritis Society for a number of years, and that was after I left the running room, they approached me to join the society. So it was perfect because I've had to fundraise. So I had to get people to sign up and raise money for the Arthritis Society. Some of them had to raise up to, $5,000-$10,000. And then I got to train them because of my background as a runner, train them and bring them on events all over the world. So I've taken groups to Ireland, to Portugal, to the Great Wall of China. And so it was great. I still got to go. And then I stayed on the course. Jamaica was an example where I stayed on the course for 8 hours going back and forth for people because they raised the money. A lot of them had no background in running or walking even that distance. And I'd stay on the course until our last participant came in. And some of them were 8 hours in Jamaica. I'll never forget it. And having to and then one of my participants decided they were going to stop at about 20 miles. So I was the only person left on the course. And so the last mile I just ran in Jamaica, Bob's Mile. So it was Bob Marley's mile. And they were handing out Red Stripe beer at the time. So I thought, well, might as well enjoy this. So it's great. Hopefully I inspired people to achieve their goal and to raise money for different organizations.
Chris, for people that maybe are younger right now, that are at a different stage in their life, that maybe haven't been involved in, many sports or physical activity, what would you say to people to give running a try? And maybe if you can speak to what the running community has sort of given back to you over your Hall of Fame career in life.
Oh, the running, if it wasn't for the running community, I wouldn't have, they've done more for me than I've done for them, I think. And so what I tell young people is it's not the easiest activity to get involved because it's a very, I know my wife runs with a group of women every morning. They're up at 5 a.m. running, 3 or 4 times a week. She still does that. Find a group, take a clinic, I think would be the best thing, but find something, because I know for a guy like me, I used to love running just by myself. I throw on the headset and go running, carry my Walkman and go running. And for me, it was more like the loneliness of the long distance runner. There's a book out there called that. But I think for a lot of people, it's just get involved. We used to in the city have clinics that had like 150 or more people in a clinic, and just get involved that way. Go to a running store. Like it doesn't have to be just a running room. There's Big Sky runners now. There's City Park runners. Just go there and get, just talk to them because they're all there to help you achieve a goal.
Chris Glowach's with us, Manitoba Sports Hall of Famer. Part of, working with Sport Manitoba on these segments with folks that have had, usually more often than not, involvement in sport at some level, often very high levels. But once they're finished their elite performance career, giving back to the sport, being involved. And I mean, you certainly have done that with the running room, with Joints in Motion, with so many different levels. How beneficial has it been to you to, long after your days of winning the Manitoba Marathon, to still be a part of the running community and give back? That's one thing I always like kind of circling back to with our guests on this segment, because we hear a very similar theme, that it's something that, continues to enrich everyone for still being involved.
See, the one thing, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't come from an athletic background anyway, had no idea I was going to win marathons. So it came full circle for me in a certain way. Like when I was competitive, but then when I wasn't competitive, even when I lost my vision, I could go back to it because I didn't take it up to be this competitive athlete. So I think that's when I taught clinics. I could relate to the average person joining a clinic that just their goal was to run maybe just a 5K, or a 10K or a half marathon or eventually a full marathon. So I feel that I could give back that because I didn't come into the sport, as that competitive athlete. And when I still ran until injury in my vision, I can really relate to those people. And I think that's why people still talk to me, and I like to do motivational talks. And if anybody's interested in having me out to talk to them, I'm thrilled to do that.
Well, it has been so much fun having you on this. I have to ask you, what was it like? How did you find out that you were going into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, and what was that call like?
It was awesome. I mean, I'm in there is a Hall of Fame, the Manitoba Runners Hall of Fame, and I'm in that. I think I was in the first class of that one. But to go into one like this, for your province with your peers in other sports, and have a class, every class is so special. But to go in with people I knew, from Alex Gardner from the University of Manitoba, and then coach, he was the head coach of when Donovan and Bernie and then won in Atlanta when he won the gold medal in Atlanta, and then Don Whitman's call was one of the best calls I've ever heard in sports. When he said, when they won the gold medal in the relay, and his call was, if you're Canadian, gotta love Saturday nights in Georgia. And Don Whitman's my hero as far as a sports commentator. And so just to go in with people like Alex and the Bronstein and Dugoods and the swimmer, and then the late Brent Bottomley, who his wife took clinics from me. So there was a real connection to I knew pretty much all of the groups that went in through my circle. So it was incredible. I'll never have my family there was amazing. And there were people there. So,
I mean, it's so well deserved. I mean, historic running career with the multiple Manitoba Marathon championships. And I think what stands out and brings us back to, a common theme of the It Takes a Community to Play segments with Sport Manitoba is that while you certainly were deserving to be inducted as an athlete, there's also a lot of evidence that you would have been in as a builder as well, because of everything you've done within the running community. Chris, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the program. Thanks for taking a little bit of time down south of the border to join us. Enjoy the rest of your time in Mexico, and we'll look forward to seeing you at some point back here in the Peg.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed that chat with Chris and appreciate him jumping on with us. He's spending a couple weeks down in Mexico. All right. We do have to get to the Coolbet lines right now. Had a very fun show today with Dusty, kind of diving in a little bit more to that Oiler Bruins game last night, which was an absolute roller coaster. We got a huge slate of games tonight in the NHL. Let's start it off with two of the top teams in the East going at it. The Panthers, who are 1 point back of Boston for first in the East with a game in hand. They've been beating everyone lately, but they're actually a very slight underdog tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes. Panthers minus 105, Canes minus 112. The Avalanche are in Detroit to take on the Wings. Colorado minus 123 favorite. Detroit is plus 105. I do like my play of the day for Coolbet, which I'm going to be throwing up on their socials a little later on. Nathan MacKinnon over 4.5 shots at minus 125. MacKinnon had 10 shots in his last game, 9 the game before, 5 in the 2 previous games. He's only got 1 goal in his last 7 games, so he's trying to shoot his way out of it. I like lots of shots for MacKinnon tonight. Rangers and Devils. Rangers are in New Jersey on the road. Slight underdog. Minus 105 for Jersey. Minus 112 for the Rangers. The Dallas Stars with Jake Ottinger going up against Anton Forsberg in Ottawa. Sens plus 139 home dogs. Dallas minus 164. The Habs are plus 220 road dogs in Pittsburgh against the Penguins at minus 268. The Capitals, coming off that spanking of the Devils in their last time out, is a big home underdog, are an underdog once again, plus 164 on the Caps money line. Lightning minus 195. The Islanders are in St. Louis to take on the Blues. The Blues a home dog, plus 102 for the home team, minus 119 for the Islanders. Boston back at it tonight after that incredible game against Edmonton. Looks like it'll be Linus Ullmark tonight. Jeremy Swayman was in last night. Calgary even money, and the Bruins minus 117. The Vancouver Canucks, who have lost 3 in a row in reg for the first time all season long, are in the Seattle against the Kraken, looking to end their streak. Vancouver minus 124, Kraken plus 106. The Leafs, a very slight favorite, minus 110 on the road in Vegas against the Golden Knights, who, maybe we'll get to this in a minute, no Mark Stone for a while and still no Jack Eichel. And then the Predators are in L.A. to take on the Kings. UC Saros back in net. The Preds just beat Vegas with Lankinen in net. It's Saros tonight for Nashville, plus 126 for the Preds and minus 149 for the Los Angeles Kings. I'm seeing the Jet number up right now. Jets minus 269 favorites tomorrow against the Blackhawks at plus 220. We'll check in on that in tomorrow's edition of the Cool Bet lines. We do have a couple of exclusives. Dusty and I have a little partner parlay. Rangers to beat Jersey, Dallas to beat Ottawa, Vancouver to beat Seattle. All to win in any fashion. Moneyline bets. That was plus 468 when we made it on the show. And our pals at Coolbet have boosted it up to plus 525. That's there. And then and by the way, if you haven't joined us before Winnipeg Sports Talk, pop over to Edmonton Sports Talk. Dustin and I get going at noon every day, Monday to Friday. And I know a number of WSTers are regulars. But, on days like this where there's lots of games, we love to sort of get everyone in the chat to fire off their favorite picks and give a boosted parlay on that. So tonight, courtesy of our commenters, Jack Hughes, 4+ shots. He's averaging 6.2 over his last 5 games. So Jack Hughes, 4 more shots on goal. Vinny Trocheck, 3 or more. He had 8 in his last game. And Miro Heiskanen to get a point, plus 385. So those are there in the Coolbet exclusives. And if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. You got any hot takes on these games tonight?
Said the one I was going to say, Nathan MacKinnon over the shot prop. You want to take him to score as well. I mean, if he's going to be shooting that much, one of them, he's Nathan MacKinnon. You think one of them is going to go in? So yeah, I was leaning that. I am intrigued by this Florida-Carolina game.
Yeah, great one to start it off.
Florida's been great on the road coming in. I think they're one of the top teams in the East. Carolina, I just don't know if they have like the top talent, but they're well coached and they're just a solid team. Goaltending's been a question for them all year, so I'm intrigued by that game. I'm not sure where you land. Maybe you want to continue to ride Florida. I think Dallas over Ottawa. How about PL and Quentin Byfield? I think they're going to keep it up against Nashville. They connected last game, and Byfield had that highlight reel goal. I don't know. Maybe PL's turning it around here.
Well, maybe he is, but the Preds, I will say, ever since Andrew Brunette told them that their trip to the Sphere and U2 was canceled, they've bounced back with wins in St. Louis and in Vegas against the Golden Knights after that 9-2 drubbing to the Dallas Stars. So
they didn't
Saros
go?
is in tonight as well. No, their coach told them you're not going.
They didn't go to the Sphere for you.
After they lost 9-2 to Dallas.
Do players on Nashville care about U2? I'm assuming it's all younger guys. Does that resonate with them? Do they care? How old are these guys in Nashville?
They probably care.
If you're not a U2 fan,
are they
big
U2 fans? No, but I'd want to go to you could tell me it was whoever at the Sphere, and I would want to go.
That's true.
That Sphere is like the freaking ninth wonder of the world now.
That's fair.
So I would definitely be in for that. But you take away the Sphere, and your team wins a couple games.
I never heard that story.
Yeah. They lost to Dallas 9-2, and he said plans are changing on the trip coming up, guys.
Oh, here's the article: how the U2 concert was used to send a message to the Predators. Oh my God.
L.A. By the way, and I know we've sort of been having some fun at L.A.'s expense with how their season went into the tank. Maybe their demise was a little premature.
They've been good.
They are playing well. PL, and I know they had the one game where they lost 7-0 to Buffalo, but they've won, I think, 6 of 7, with the exception of that 7-0 embarrassment to Buffalo. They're only 2 points back of Edmonton, and the Oilers do have one game in hand, and they're 4 points back of Vegas with 2 games in hand. So I saw Dennis Bernstein do a tweet last night saying, "Oh, it's going to be quite the race." For second place. And I'm like, we're talking about LA being there? Well, actually, yeah, they are right there. So we'll see what happens with that. But I would not, put it this way, I wouldn't bet on the Kings tonight. I think Saros is so good that, getting him back in with his team, having won a couple games, having lost their U2 Sphere privileges, that's a team that I don't want to be fading right now. I will leave it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, some other great games tonight. I might have to post up at Win City at 6:00 for a nice long shift tonight. Gotta love the NHL center ice and getting a few games on. Do you want to talk about these uniforms quickly?
Yeah, we need to touch on. People are asking us every day about what's going on in Major League Baseball. And I touched on it last week. So they came out with the jerseys and, the lettering, the names looked all small. They're more curved. The jersey material, it's felt like, one of those discount jerseys that you get or a giveaway jersey, really cheap.
Exactly. First 15,000 fans.
And these are, the jerseys the players are wearing. But now more and more pictures are coming out as they do promotional. It's come to light that these jerseys, the pants, are see-through. Here's a couple of Cleveland Guardians players. You can see their jerseys tucked in. You can see the tag fully. There's a picture I have of Ohtani.
It's a good thing Drake isn't a Major League Baseball player.
You're right. So, and here's Ohtani and Yamamoto together. You can look how ridiculous these are. Major League Baseball, and they put in this new uniform, Fanatics and MLB. And why we're talking, because Fanatics is taking over the NHL jersey production. Now they say they're going to be using the same Adidas facilities, but I don't trust them. And for fans who want to buy the jerseys, all the jersey buyers are saying, just buy last year's on sale or don't buy this year's. And so now you're seeing that it's see-through and more promotional photos are coming out. Well, the Giants did some photos. And check this out, Huss. This picture of Casey Schmidt. Oh my God, I got deleted. Casey Schmidt. Hold on. Let me. Oh, here it is. This Casey Schmidt mustache photo. Okay, so here's a Giants player, and they're saying, "Oh, you look at his mustache," but like you look at the pants, you can see this guy's balls in the picture.
NSFW.
Yeah, like
NSFW.
I have to put a black thing. We can't be showing this on YouTube. We might get shut down for showing this. But you can see this guy's testicles. So I don't know what they're gonna do here with these pants. It's insane.
Okay, you don't need to just leave that on for
I
10
took it off.
minutes.
We show for too long. Like they might shut us down. But like you literally could see indentation there. So it's a problem. They haven't come out and said anything. Nike and Fanatics. Everyone wants to blame Fanatics, but that's come out that Fanatics is just using Nike's designs. As I'm reading the chat here, sorry guys.
I know the chat's completely off the rails.
And it's your boy Bruce says it's like Leon on Curb from the weekend. If anyone watched it, I would agree. But this uniform story. We shouldn't be talking about uniforms on day one of spring training, but Fanatics has taken over the sports apparel industry. They've got a monopoly. Now they're doing in-game jerseys. And it looks like they're doing a pretty bad job, and everyone wants to shit on them. So here we go.
I mean, the see-through pants. Like the jerseys, I already did not have high hopes when Fanatics took over. I mean, I haven't had any real, like, I can't think of anything I got from Fanatics that I'm like, this is an awesome piece of merch.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to a lot of the great Adidas, Nike stuff that had happened in the past. But when I saw this business with the see-through pants, I mean, that is just, like, how does it get to that point? Like, these are multi-gajillion-dollar businesses. Like, is there no quality control? Do they not try these things on? Do they not notice this before guys show up for spring training?
They don't care, Huss. They want to make the cheapest thing, want to make it the most easily to produce. They just want to have a white template or a gray template and just heat press on the logos. They don't want to do any embroidery anymore. They won't have any custom designs. I think that's why last year, if you wanted to get Super Bowl jersey, you can only get the white jersey of each team because it's just easier to. You just have to make one jersey and change the font. That's what the Fanatics did with that. So I think they're trying to make it uniform. You know, the players used to be able to customize their pants. You know, they're baseball players. They got big asses, big thighs. Helps you, especially if you're a pitcher, helps you throw the ball fast. They got to get special pants for that. You don't think what? You're laughing that I said big asses. So the guys need.
It's the chat. It's the chat. Spency's new acronym for WST. Just we might need to end the stream.
What did he say there? I missed it. But they just want to make everything more streamlined, so you can't nothing custom, and just have it as easier and okay. See what it says. Yeah, want to make it custom and nothing custom and everything just made the most easily and the cheapest. And I hope consumers keep calling them out and maybe don't buy jerseys. Like they're charging $400 if you want the authentic jersey. I think that's US, so I don't know what the Canadian prices are, but it's insane. And I think people are kind of sick of this kind of BS, and we'll see what happens. I'm assuming nothing's going to happen. It's going to blow over. They haven't made any statements, but the players are going to the PA and saying, this is stupid. But, you know, other players are saying, you know, it's funny, all the Nike players like Mike Trout's like, yeah, these are great. I love these. And no one's buying it. So again, we'll see what happens. I still think nothing will. Rob Manfred will come and be like, everything's great. The game's so good, blah, blah, blah. Like, so it's disappointing. I think it's just disappointing, well, that the players are after wearing these inferior uniforms, but then the fans who want to buy their jersey just end up paying more for an inferior product as well. So we'll see.
Most importantly, now that spring training is, we need daily Daniel Vogelbach updates to find out whether he's going to get a major league contract with the Jays to put them over the top after a very quiet quiet off season.
The Jays.
We got to get Johnny. We got to get Johnny Ginta on again sometime soon. Now that baseball's back.
Man, I couldn't believe the Blue Jays off season where they're arguing with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. about $2 million. Like, what an embarrassing look that is. They were like preparing to offer Ohtani like $700 million. You see every other team lock up their young stars to like these 8-year deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can't pay. You're arguing with Vlad Guerrero Jr. about $2 million. So ridiculous and very, very petty. So I'm not sure what to make of it. And every team's locking up their stars. The Blue Jays don't have anyone locked up. What are these guys doing? I think they're ready to. They're projecting like to finish just out of the playoffs. They didn't make any big improvements. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. They've got some young pitchers that are coming in.
Well, their pitching was really good, but everyone was healthy last year. They got so lucky. Like, that's not going to happen again.
That being said, their guys didn't hit at all.
They did not.
Like, if you would just assume, like I would assume that the pitching takes a step back. I don't know how they can be as good as they were consistently all last year.
Mm-hmm.
Although Manoah, like that was without Manoah, who was supposed to be their ace at the start of the season. He looks like a new human. He is in shape. I'm excited to see what he does. And I'm certainly... Vlad has to have a better season. Bo was great, but maybe a little bit more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Chapman still doesn't have a contract, does he?
No, but
neither does Bellinger. It's all the Boris clients. They're just out. Thanks for the super chat there, son.
Yeah,
I saw what you said.
Everyone's blaming Scott Boras, but I think a lot of these teams just don't want to spend money and they don't want to try to win. And they just want to collect their paychecks from revenue sharing and from TV deals. Like, look at a team like the Pirates. Like, they're a joke. Like, they don't sign anyone. They don't spend money. So I don't think it's people want to blame Scott Boras, but I think it's these owners of some of these teams just think owning a franchise is like an annuity, and they don't have to try to win, and they can come in and collect all the money.
Well, they also think that they don't have a chance to win. Because of
so many teams get in the playoffs now. It's so much more random, and you want to think about don't have a chance to win. You want to look. Okay, everyone says, "Oh, there's no parity in baseball." There's so much parity in the NHL. You know which league has more different champions since the NHL put in a salary cap? Baseball does more than the NHL. So anyone can win if you try. And I think a lot of baseball teams don't want to try.
See, I don't know. As a Royals fan, they had that magical couple of years, and then they couldn't afford all their guys. They left, and then they lose 110 games a season.
Yeah, so. I can't speak to them, but there's other teams. I did see it was Royals bench coach Rusty Kuntz. He's celebrating his 69th birthday today.
Rusty, he's a legend there in KC.
Legend.
Absolutely a legend there in KC. Hey, Travis, thanks for the super chat as well. So yeah, we'll stay on top, and we will. Johnny Gunta, he was a very popular guest of ours from the Gate 14 pod. I go back and forth with him on Twitter every now and then, so we'll try and get him a little bit on the reg as we get closer to Jays season. But the focus tomorrow is on the Jets in Chicago, and Dalton Schoen coming on the program as well. We're going to have Rewicki. We'll have Ken Wiebe. We will have Dalton Schoen. Potentially Hacksaw. I'm not sure whether Hacksaw is going to take a couple breaks now that we're out of the season. Is he on right now?
Yeah, he's on actually. Thanks for reminding. I keep forgetting.
Okay. Everyone that's with us right now, let's go say hi to Hacksaw. We're going to do a raid.
Yeah.
To Hacksaw, and maybe he'll be with us tomorrow. Maybe he won't. And you know what? We'll do an update on the curling for anyone that's paying attention to the Scotties. The afternoon draw is going on right now. And there is the potential of a 6-way tie for 4-4 in that division. So if you go there, hang around. We'll get to Hacksaw coming up in just a couple of minutes, and maybe have him on the show tomorrow. But hey, listen, a big thanks to our guest today. Really enjoyed our conversation with Chris Glowach, of course, Mike McIntyre, Scott Billeck. Big thanks to all of our sponsors, and enjoy all the games tonight. Tomorrow, a packed show heading into the weekend and the Jets and Chicago Blackhawks. Have a good one. And Remo, let's take this party over to the Hacksaw channel.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.